Hello everyone, this is Dustin from A Culinarian's Curiosity, and in today's video I'm going to show you a few simple ways to elevate your store-bought ramen and change it into gourmet only using a few simple tricks. If you want to see more videos like this, give this video a like and please subscribe to the channel and join me on a journey of curiosity. Now, if you're anything like me, I love store-bought ramen noodles. I've been eating them since I was a kid. What we can do now is we can take the store-bought and elevate it into something gourmet without all the fuss of making your own stock and things like that. We're just going to do a few simple things. I'm sure that we all have some ramen noodles in our cabinets. They come in all shapes and sizes and anything from 50p to up to 1 pound, 2 pounds. But really, it doesn't matter which ones we use because what we're gonna make to go along with it, different seasonings and different ingredients to go along with it will elevate it no matter what we use. So the first special ingredient that I'm gonna show you today is called an ajitama, or also called a ramen egg. Basically, a soft boiled egg cured in soy sauce, salt, sugar, water, vinegar. And what this is gonna do is just elevate it to the next level, add another ingredient, and really add a nice bit of texture and a bit of flavor to the ramen. And it's really simple. We can do 5, 6 eggs at a time, and so you can have them in your fridge ready to go. And we're gonna go through the process of how to make ajitama or a ramen egg. Now, to prepare the ajitama, all we're gonna do is make a soft boiled egg. I like to do mine for about 5.5 to 6 minutes. We want a runny yolk because that's going to give us loads of flavor, nice texture, and that yolk is going to mix in with the broth and give it a really, really nice flavor. So all we're going to do is take our eggs, about 5.5 to 6 minutes, cool them down, and then peel them. Now the next hack ingredient I'm going to teach you about is called tare. Tare sounds complicated, but basically it means sauce in Japanese. And what tare does is seasons the broth. So it's very flavorful, very concentrated, and it just takes that ramen broth up to the next level. Now, what is tare? There's lots of different types of recipes for tares, different kinds of styles. I'm not going to teach you one in particular, just what I like to do at home, which is the simplest way to do it. What tare is basically salt, sugar, vinegar, seasonings, things like that, just to elevate the broth. Now on to the tare while these eggs are cooking. So if you don't have all these ingredients, don't worry. It'll still be nice without them. Just the key ingredients to this is the soy sauce, sugar, salt, vinegar, those types of flavors. I do have a special few things that we're gonna add. I've got some dashi kombu, which is dried seaweed. It's not exactly like what you get when you go to the sushi, when you get sushi. This is dried kelp, really, really thick. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna let this simmer and steep in with that as it cooks. The next ingredient that I'm gonna add to the tare, these are called bonito flakes. So basically this is dried tuna flakes. So I'm just gonna add a little bit, but it's just gonna give it that extra depth of flavor. And then the last special ingredient I have here is mirin. Sweet Japanese wine. So what this is going to do is just going to sweeten it up a little bit, and we're going to make a really complex bit of flavors. But if you don't have all these things, just some soy sauce, some sugar, some water, a splash of vinegar, and you'll be fine. So all I'm doing now is adding the ingredients to the pot. You could also add garlic, ginger, onions, shallots, things like that, and then strain them out when it's done. So basically with tare, we're making a really, really concentrated flavor. But when we add it to the ramen, we only add a little bit. So about 1 part tare to about 20 parts broth. So it's gonna be very, very intense, very salty, but you don't eat it by itself. It's just to season the rest of the broth. So that was the soy sauce, splash of mirin, just a splash of vinegar. Rice wine vinegar would be really, really great, ideal to use, but unfortunately I don't have any in the house. Then some sugar. And also a traditional thing to add to this is some chicken stock. I don't have any, I have some chicken stock in the freezer, but I'm gonna save it for something else. So all I'm gonna do is add a chicken bouillon cube into this and that'll be just fine. All right. Next, some of the bonito flakes. I'm not gonna use the whole sachet. And then we're gonna take some of this kombu. I'm gonna leave it in relatively big pieces so it's easier to fish out. So I'm just gonna put that in there. And then a splash of water. We're gonna end up adding more water to it, but what I'm gonna do is add water at the end to cool it down. So our ramen eggs are now cooked and cooling down. I'm gonna start cracking them in a minute. The tare is on the stove simmering away. And what we're gonna do next is slice some spring onions and chop some garlic to put in the tare. What we're gonna do is, I always find that I have way too many spring onions when I buy a bunch. I use them for a dish and then they end up sitting in my fridge and going bad. So sometimes when you get a pack of ramen noodles, it'll come with some dried vegetables with it that gives it a really nice flavor. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna slice these spring onions up nice and thin, and I'm gonna put them in the oven at about 100 degrees Celsius and just let them dry out for about an hour. I know this seems like a lot of work for ramen noodles, but the nice thing about these things I'm teaching you today is you can make a day of it, do these things up, and then they can last you a few times. So you do it once, and then over the next few days you have all these ingredients that you can use for your ramen. And also we can freeze some of it down, like we can freeze some of this tare down. And like I said, dry the spring onions out, they'll last a lot longer. I also like slicing mushrooms and drying them out in the oven, so whenever I want ramen noodles, I can just take a handful of those dried spring onions and dried mushrooms and add it to it, and boom, with no extra effort, I have really awesome ramen. So what I'm gonna do now is take these spring onions and I'm just gonna slice them really thin. If you've got some kind of bad pieces on the outside, no worries, just take those outer layers and just peel them off. And what we're gonna do is we're gonna take the stem, the root of the spring onion, and we're gonna add that to the tare while it simmers, and we're just gonna strain it out. So I'm just gonna take all these and peel off these outer layers to get the nice bits. And I'll just show you two here, and then I'll chop the rest off camera. So I'm gonna take those ends, and I'm gonna add it to the tare while it simmers, just to give it that extra little bit of flavor. And what I'm also gonna do is I'm gonna take just a few cloves of garlic, just give them a bit of a smush, and just a little bit broken up, I'm just gonna add them to the tare because they're really just gonna simmer in there and impart a bit of flavor, and I'm not too worried about getting them chopped all nice. I'll give it a little bit of a crunch just to break it up a bit, and then we'll add that to the tare while it simmers and just impart that nice garlic flavor to it. Like I said, the tare is going to be very, very concentrated flavors. So you're not going to want to eat the tare by itself, but when you add just a touch of it to the rest of your ramen dish, it just seasons that broth and just elevates it to the next level. All right, so we're just gonna thinly slice these spring onions on a bias. We're gonna give a nice, thin, long slice because they're gonna look pretty as well. But when we dry these out in the oven, they're gonna give it a really, really nice flavor to the ramen. And it's gonna be really easy because they're just gonna be dried out, and we're gonna be able to grab a handful whenever we want. I'm also gonna take these little bit ends and throw them in the tare as well, just to let those simmer. Like I said, it might seem a lot of work, but once we have all this done, you've got these ingredients to use whenever you want to use them. They'll just be at hand. and also with these spring onions and things like that, they also go great on other dishes. So it's really nice to have some dried spring onions to hand. Plus, I always seem to let them go to waste because you buy a bunch from the supermarket and then you use what you need, and then you have a bunch that just goes bad, doesn't it? All right, now we have our cooked ramen eggs. So all we're gonna do is just crack and peel these like normal. Now be very gentle with them because these are very, very soft boiled. So just be gentle with them because they will be fragile. We're not trying to win any beauty contest here because we're just doing this at home for fun for ourselves. So don't worry if, you know, they break a little bit or whatnot, because it's all right. Not to worry about it, we're just having fun. All right, so now we have our ramen eggs, our ajitama. Like I said, don't worry about if they're not the most perfect and pretty thing, because like I said, this is just for us at home. And just to kind of show you, I'm just gonna slice the one that I kind of broke apart, just open, just so we can see the inside. And they don't have to be all the way cooked all the way because we're gonna let them cure. So as you can see that yolk is nice and runny. So what we're gonna do now is we're gonna cure this, and it's gonna harden up that egg white, and it's gonna give it some firmness and give it some nice texture. And then when we're ready to put this in the dish, we're gonna put it in the hot stock, so it'll continue to cook that a little bit more. So don't worry if it's a little too runny, a little too under. This was about 5.5 minutes. You can go a little bit longer if you want, but it's up to you. All right, so now we have our tare, nice and simmered. The flavor of the kombu and the spring onion and everything's melded really nice together. Like I said, this is gonna be very flavorful. But what we're gonna do now is, because this is really hot, we're gonna add about 50%, or we're gonna add about the equal amount of cold water to cool it down really quick, and then we're also gonna strain it off. And then we're gonna use some of this liquid to pour over the eggs to help them cure. And when I say cure, just like curing meats and things like that, salt, sugar cures. So it's gonna cure that egg and make it really, really nice. All right, so we have the tare nice and cooled down. And I'm just gonna pour that over the eggs just so they're just submerged. Now these are gonna get better with age. So we can use them today for this demonstration. They're not gonna have a complete time to cure, but you can taste them like for every day that they go. So first day is a lot different than the second day and the third day. And by the time you get to the second, third day, the texture is really, really changed, and that gives a nice, different texture, more exciting flavors and things for the ramen dish. So I'm just putting a lid on that and giving it a bit of a stir just so it completely covers everywhere. And then I'm just gonna put those in the fridge. And like I said, you can use these for 3 days, and then so you do it on one day, then you can have it for the rest of 3 days. So as we approach the final steps of this dish, there's a few more little things that we can do just to elevate it up to that professional level. One of the main things that I like to do, that professionals do when they make ramen, is they cook the noodles separate from the broth. Now what that does, it lets you cook those noodles perfectly without worrying about overcooking it with the broth or having too much broth. So we just cook it off to the side, then we can have the broth perfect, and then we can have the noodles perfect. So I'm sure we all have some sort of ramen that's similar to this. It might not be as fancy. This one's about a pound. You might be your 50p one, but they're all very similar. Some of them are gonna have some dried vegetables, some of them won't. And if you're anything like me and you're a ramen fanatic, you end up having a nice little collection of different seasoning sachets that go along with it. Because sometimes I put 2 in and I don't use both sachets. So I always have this little bit of the base for it, so I can use it whenever I want. What we're gonna do is we're gonna take the base out of this, and we're gonna put that in the one pot that's gonna be our soup. And then next to it, I have the water that I'm gonna cook the noodles in. So like I said, I can cook the noodles perfect in one pot, and I can cook the stock perfect in the other pot, and then bring them together, and I'll have a perfect bowl of ramen. So another thing I like to do, since I have the kombu, which is the seaweed lying around, I like just to use one little piece and put it in the water just as it's coming up to temperature, just to let it get a little bit more flavor in there. Don't worry, I don't expect all of you to have kombu. You can get it from Amazon for a few pounds, and then it's a big massive bag, so you buy it once and then you'll have it for ages. So I'm just gonna put the soup base in there. Now, if you want to cook like a real professional, you know, you might make your own stock, a beef broth made from bones and things like that. But that's the next advanced level. This is just to take that store-bought ramen noodles and elevate it simply. All right, and the last finishing touches is I'm just going to add a pinch of MSG. Don't worry, I don't expect you all to have MSG at home, but MSG is just a flavor enhancer for that umami flavor. If you don't have MSG, you can add mushrooms and things like that, which are going to give you a similar flavor. It's just more savory. And the last special ingredient we have is aromatic oils. So you can use several different types of oils, or you can make your own. I like to use a blend of 2 different ones. So I just have some toasted sesame oil. And then I have some homemade red pepper flakes and garlic oil that I made. Now what this does is it just gives it a bit of fat, and that fat is going to coat the noodles, and it's going to give a really nice flavor and a really nice creamy texture to the broth. All right, time to finish plating up now. So what we're going to do is we have our bowl off to the side here, and we're going to add a bit of the tare. Now it's only just gonna be a touch because it's just a seasoning to finish off. So like I said, it's gonna be about, 1 part tare to 10 parts stock to even 20 parts stock. So if you taste the tare by itself, it's gonna be quite intense, but it's only gonna be a little bit. And then we're gonna add our aromatic oils. So why I do it this way is because if we add it to the bottom here, and then when we add the rest of the ingredients, it's gonna mix it all nicely together. If I was just to add it on top, it wouldn't be as nicely mixed throughout. So just a splash of those 2 oils. One's got a bit of heat, and the sesame oil just gives it a nice flavor. All right. So now we're gonna add our soup. So as we add that, it's just gonna mix it up very nicely. And then we'll add our noodles. Add that in there just like that. And then we've got our last bit of garnish to add. So we have our ramen egg here. So I'm just gonna give that a nice slice open. And as you can see, just with about 20 minutes in there, it's already starting to cure a little bit. So we're gonna set that on top, and that egg yolk is gonna mix with the soup really nicely. I'm just gonna give that egg just a little bit of seasoning with this togarashi, which is like a Szechuan orange peel seasoning here. And also just give it a shake of salt. And I have my spring onions in the oven, finishing drying out, but I'll be able to use a little bit of them. They're not too far off here. A bit of the dried spring onion on top. And that's it. All right, everyone, thank you for watching. I know it may seem like a lot, kind of complicated, but these were just a few ideas. You can do one of these, you can do two of these, you can do all of these to elevate your ramen. The fun thing about cooking is once we know how to do it, we can cook whatever ingredients that we want to add. You can make this spicy. If you don't like the egg, you don't have to add the egg. If you love ramen as much as I do, a little bit of investment in a few ingredients that you can get online can really elevate your ramen game. Again, thank you for watching. If you haven't, please like this video and subscribe. I'm going to be doing at least weekly videos on cooking tutorials. Might do things like some knife skills or some knife sharpening along with some different cuisines. On Monday, I'm planning on doing a Mexican cuisine, a Mexican night. So please comment, like, subscribe, and thank you very much.